Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the Queens Chamber Internship Series, where we typically connect businesses to the talented students in Queens County. But today's episode is going to be a little different. Today is all about how your Queens small business can successfully host an intern and make sure it's a great experience for both you and the student. So today, joining us to talk about best practices in hosting a college intern are two rock stars from the Center for Career Engagement and Internships at Queens College, Diane Shults and Dr. Keesha Cameron. Diane, Dr. Cameron, please introduce yourselves and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Neil. So my name is Diane Shults. I am an Associate Director for Alumni and Employer Relations at Queens College. I have been with the college 7 years, and prior to that, I worked about 25 years on Wall Street doing HR for finance organizations, and I also counsel students in the business and finance area.
And I am Dr. Keesha Cameron. I am the Associate Director, one of the Associate Directors as well, for the Center for Career Engagement at Queens College. My background is counseling, coaching, clinical psychology, and I work on issues of self and career, as well as motivation and optimization of performance.
Great. And Keesha and I work very closely together in the center. We have about 9 other colleagues, and Queens College, as you may know, has about 18,000 undergrads and 2,000 grad students. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pull up a presentation and I will share my screen and we'll go through it. And what you can do is you can put any questions you may have in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will be happy to answer any questions live. Okay, so internship programs, we will give you an overview, help you prepare, give you suggested steps for success, benefits of having a program, some resources, and then take questions. So I've actually run quite a few internship programs, and I've had up to 300 participants in my programs. And whether you're having 1 or 300, most of the work is the same. So what you'd like to do, and this is just a very broad overview, make sure that the work experience for the intern or interns is good, is practical, is experiential. It could be assisting somebody, it could be a project, and it should be given to the intern by a designated supervisor so that the intern is aware of who he or she should be reporting to. This gives the intern an opportunity to observe others at work, contribute. They can rotate through different parts of the organization. It could be 5 weeks in one department. It could be 5 weeks in another department, depending on the internship. It's helpful for the intern to have a mentor and networking opportunities within the organization. And since most likely everyone is still virtual, I know there are some in-person operations. If it's a summer internship, we suggest that there are events that put the intern in contact with other individuals outside of the area that they are working in, which would be career connections and or some networking opportunities. Depending on the size of the firm and the program, I know we have quite a few nonprofits joining us as well as for-profit, so it may differ depending on your firm. Training could be formal, could be on the job, but definitely want to onboard the intern or interns and make sure that they have a little insight into your business, what's expected of them. ongoing feedback for their professional and personal development. Make sure that you have a business case for doing an internship. And most importantly, especially if you're in a large firm, you do need buy-in and want buy-in from leadership. Typically, internships were just a summer internship available, and now it's expanded where students are now doing spring, summer, fall, or winter. And this is just a snapshot of how it can look. Obviously everything could be amended to your firm or your program. Typically, summer internships are 8 to 10 weeks full-time, 35 hours a week. If you do a spring or fall, it's about 15 to 35 hours a week, and that is dependent upon your schedule, the intern schedule. If they're going to school a couple of days a week, they may be able to work weekends, but that's something that you decide between you and the intern. A winter internship, same, 15 to 35 hours per week, and that lasts about 4 to 5 weeks. We can get into some more compensation information in the Q&A, but we do recommend that for-profit organizations pay their interns, and it's recommended that minimum wage is a good starting place. Interns usually get anywhere between $15 to $25 an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less. There is an FSLA, which is the Fair Standards Act fact sheet, and I will show you that. There's specific directions on that, and basically it will tell you whether or not you can hire an intern and not pay them. So nonprofits are allowed to hire interns and not pay. Also, academic internships offered during the spring and fall, sometimes summer too, can be taken for credit, which means, especially for a nonprofit, if the student is taking a class for credit, then it's unpaid. That's okay, and we'll also get into scholarships and how that works. So preparation, very important that you have a job description that clearly explains what the intern will be doing. The job description should include the company name, the job title, duties, description of the role. Sometimes you want a specific major. If it's open to all majors, that's okay. GPA, if applicable. Some companies start with a 2.5 or higher GPA. Some companies will do a 3.0 or higher. Really depends on the needs and what you're looking for. You can work with Keesha and myself. We work in a college career center to post a job on the recruiting platform. We have plenty of students ready, willing, and able. But you can also go outside, and there are a couple of search engines that I'm sure you are aware of. Indeed is one of them. Way Up is another. And then there's a new one called Ripple Match, and I'm sure there's many others. Mentioned before that identifying a staff member who would supervise the intern or interns, because it's important that they know who they're reporting to, who's going to be giving their assignments to them, what their hours are, and any type of question that they may have, they can come to you. Some of the interns are going to be, more timid than others, so we want to make them as comfortable as possible. We also want to identify someone, if it makes sense, if your organization is big enough, who would enjoy and benefit from mentoring an intern. It will teach that person leadership. It'll teach that person how to work with someone, how to delegate. You know, it's not easy sometimes to delegate assignments. So knowing that there's someone that they could sort of be their confidant, that they can go to if they have a question that they don't want to ask a supervisor, someone who is capable of providing not only day-to-day structure alongside the supervisor, but any sort of insight into the culture, what it's like to work there, and any type of feedback. And then, of course, you want to convey expectations at the beginning of the internship and next steps and expectations at the end of the internship. So some steps to be successful: assess the organizational needs and determine how many interns would be suitable for your organization, and what is the objective for the program. This is really important because you don't want to have interns that are sitting around doing nothing. You really want to get not only your money's worth, but you really want to get the opportunity to let them shine, let them do work, teach them about the working world and what they can expect. Because this, for some of them, it may be their first time stepping into the outside world as an intern. Define the aspects of the program, make it educational, make it interesting, rewarding for them, develop their expectations, and this should be done in conjunction with them, goals and learning objectives. So on the first day when you're onboarding them, perhaps sitting down with them and asking them what do they expect to get out of this internship? What are their goals? What are they hoping to learn? Almost like a shadowing program. If you have a small company, it's nice to let the interns sit in on a call if you can, if there's no confidential information. Maybe having them sign a confidentiality agreement so that they know that whatever they see stays there. Communicate the program goals with your team, making sure that you have organizational commitment. And then what are your goals of the internship? Is it to build a pipeline of students for conversion into a full-time? Is it to, just give students the opportunity to work full-time or part-time? And then, next time have have more students. It could be whatever you want it to be. But as long as you make it obvious to the student and the Career Center, so we can help manage the expectations of the students. Invest time in the intern. So when you're interviewing, making sure that the interviews are with people that are knowledgeable about the role, that are knowledgeable about the company, what type of training that they're going to get, what type of supervision, will there be a mid-summer or mid-semester evaluation. We suggest that there is one. It doesn't have to be formal, but we do suggest, especially if there's something that's going on, that there's continuous feedback. But if the student is doing a great job, a mid and end of semester or summer evaluation is always helpful. Orientation, somebody sitting down with the person or persons. And orientation can be before the internship starts. It can be while the intern starts on the first day or the first week. And here is where you share the mission of the company, the vision of the CEO or the leadership team. What are some of the policies that the intern is expected to follow? What's the structure of the organization? You know, how do the departments and, you know, how does everybody report up through the organization if it's a big organization? What type of culture? Is it a collegial culture? Is it a more formal culture? Technology companies, we know these days, are much more laid back. And if it's in person, what's the dress code? Should the intern be expected to wear a suit and tie, or are jeans okay, or do you want business casual? All that needs to be conveyed because the intern really may have no idea on how it works. We do expect them to obviously do research on the company. They should know coming into the interview what your company does and what the mission is, but we just want to make sure that they're set up for success. And again, you know, teaching the intern about the working world and what it's like to have a real world job. Okay. What are the benefits of having an intern? There are so many benefits, and so we only put a handful here, but I'd love to have a live discussion after the presentation about that. Allows the organization to grow its future leaders. Big part of internships aids in the organization's diversity efforts, brings employees with a fresh perspective on the work world. You know, the students are really smart these days. They do like immediate gratification. They do like immediate results. They do want to move up quickly, but we try to set those expectations beforehand. It can ensure a pipeline of trained employees that are available to move up the ranks as others retire or move on. It brings in entry-level employees to do the roles, allowing the organization to focus on the experienced talent, on those roles requiring that level of experience. Usually when you have interns that leave the organization after a summer internship, if they're coming back, they'll stay in touch with you until they become full-time employees. They can act as ambassadors back on campus. They'll tell their friends what a great experience they've had. And that's, you know, marketing 101. So they could market your program or your company to others. I had one student work with a for-profit company, but it was a startup last semester. And it was very new. It was a little unorganized, but the student had a really good opportunity to work closely with a CEO, something that never gets to happen. And the CEO asked the student if they had any other friends that were looking for roles. And so we were able to get another student a marketing role. And so that's how the ambassadorship works. So it's really key to treat the students as employees while they are with you. Answer the questions that they have. We usually tell students there aren't dumb questions, and we engage them and advise them that they should ask questions so that they could learn. So, resources. I'm not actually going to go into all of these. I did share the presentation with Neil and Queena, so you will be able to have this. But I would just like to go over a couple of things. So one of the things I mentioned was the Fair Labor Standard Act. And I'm just going to go into it very quickly. So this here will help you. It's updated as of January 2018. You can print out a PDF, but there's something called the test. And so It's right here. I'm not going to go over it, but this is the primary test that you would give to determine whether an intern or a student is in fact an employee under the FLSA, which means that they would have to be paid. So that's something that we highly suggest that you look at. The next thing is there's a couple of NACE articles on running internships that you can read. There's something that we talk a lot about, which is the FERPA Act, and that's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. I put down here, there's something called the Parker Dewey micro internship website, so that if you have an internship or a project and you'd like a student to work on it, you can actually go to Parker Dewey. I think there's a small fee, post it, and then our students, we have a partnership with Parker Dewey as other colleges do, and they will match you with the student. I'm going to ask my colleague, Dr. Cameron, to just come on and talk a little bit about scholarships for students.
So I think, thank you, Diane. I think that one of the unique aspects at Queens College is what we now offer our students, which is actually a stipend for $2,400. It's not considered a scholarship, but it is a stipend that students receive for unpaid internships, because we firmly believe that a fair day's work deserves a fair day's pay. And so our chancellor, Dr. Felix Matos Rodriguez, has been instrumental in really uplifting the idea of experiential learning as part of our students' degrees. And so one of the things that he did, leaving Queens College to take on the chancellorship, is he instituted, instead of having a building named after him or a room or a quad, he gave us a very generous fund that students can now tap into in order to take on unpaid internships. And so I know that many of our not-for-profit partners can sometimes not afford to pay the students that they take on as interns, even though the students are getting excellent experience and excellent opportunities and are really learning in ways that they couldn't in the classroom. And so these stipends really do afford them the opportunity to do that. I think also, in addition to talking about our own stipend, one of the ways that you can compensate students if you cannot afford an hourly pay rate is to also offer a small scholarship. Scholarships are an excellent way to sweeten the pot, so to speak, for students. We've had employers do creative things with scholarships and offerings that encourage students and that help offset some of the difficulty. I know most internships right now are virtual, but some are face-to-face. And so things like travel may present students with additional burden. Even finding food at lunchtime is sometimes something that can be burdensome for students. And so we know that our students are a hungry bunch. We feed them at every opportunity we can. And so, lunch and the cost of travel is sometimes an option in terms of providing them with scholarship that allows them to then not feel as though this is not something that they are eager to participate in because it's burdensome or that it costs them an additional, in addition to the other costs that their lives also entail. And so scholarships are really an excellent opportunity. We are, I think, one of the few schools that offers, especially one of the few within the CUNY program, that offers scholarships for students to participate in experiential learning. And I'm more than happy to talk to anyone who wants to know more about how our students earn those scholarships and who's interested in maybe supporting students in that way.
Great, thank you. Lastly, before we go into questions, we follow NACE career competencies. The NACE stands for the National Association of College and Employers. You can access them by visiting naceweb.org, and there's a host of information and resources for employers and colleges. So I'll just read them really fast, but these are the skills that we're trying to teach the students, and we're trying to embed it in the classroom now. But these are the skills and the competencies that most employers are looking for. Critical thinking, work ethic. A big one is oral and written communication, digital technology, leadership, teamwork, global intercultural fluency, and career management. So I said oral and written communication is like the top one. I would say the next top one is critical thinking and problem solving. And then following that is the digital technology. So it's important for students to remain updated on technologies that are coming out every other day. So this concludes the actual presentation portion. And then what I'd like to do is, just ask Neil and Queena if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, or if there are any questions coming in from the viewers.
Yeah, definitely. And first off, thank you, Diane and Keesha, so much for joining us today. This information has been incredibly helpful at the Chamber. We get asked all the time, where can I get an intern? How do we start an internship program? So this information is just incredibly valuable. So thank you. And again, everybody, we will go into the Q&A here real quick. If you have a question, please drop it into the Q&A or into the chat box and we'll get it answered for you. The first question I have here is from Robert. Will the presentation be sent to those who attended today? Robert, the presentation is currently up on our Facebook page and will be able to be watched there. And it will also be on the Queen's Chamber YouTube page and the Queen's Chamber website, probably at the end of today or at the very latest tomorrow morning. All right, so then if anybody else has any questions, like I said, please drop them in the Q&A or the chat. Let's see here, Regina. Must the organization have a formal program instituted in order to secure an intern or in order to be in compliance?
I can take that one. That word formal, I'm struggling a little bit with it. Are you asking, is the requirement to have a structured internship program or an unstructured internship program? So a structured internship program differs from an unstructured internship program in that it has a beginning, a middle, and end. There are people who are in charge of it. We've had all kinds of organizations participate in internships with our students. The only requirement that we have is that you are an organization. So you're licensed, you operate a business, you have a physical location, and that the student has an internship supervisor and someone who can provide them with instruction on the thing that they are learning. So, an intern is not, not someone who can be unsupervised. They have to actually be learning. That's by definition what makes them an intern. And it's one of the tests of that Fair Standards Labor Act. And so they have to have someone who can help them grow their skills in that regard. And so whether you're structured or unstructured doesn't really matter, whether the program is formal or informal. What matters is that you are actually helping the student to learn. That's kind of the basis of what is required.
Awesome. Thank you, Keesha. And we have a question from our friend Scott Grimm-Lyon from the JFK bid. How do you best judge what tasks to assign an intern, especially when you don't have much of an opportunity to judge their skill level because you are only working with them on a short-term basis?
That's another good one. I think you assign a student tasks based on your need and their ability. So one of the most important things you can do is screen. When you're hiring your intern, you should see these potential students as people who can become, who can convert. So in other words, who can go from being an intern to potentially being a full-time employee. Even if they don't, even if you don't have that structure built into your program, even if there isn't that budget or it's not part of the plan to have them stay, they should be able to add value. So, when looking for an intern, they should have some of the basic skills and requirements, but they should more importantly have the transferable skills. They should have the ability to learn, the platform to be able to quickly add that learning component so that they can add value to your organization and to the work that's being done. I hope I answered the question, but I think screening is one of the key things that you can do in order to identify what you can then give a student in order to help both your business process as well as the student's growth, facilitate the student's growth.
Fantastic. So we have a couple more questions here. One is, if I'm a business looking to host a summer intern, when is the best time to reach out to your office? Is it now? Is it closer to summer? Or what do you recommend?
Yeah, in terms of the timeline, I would say, let's be honest, internships are a competitive process, not just for students, but for businesses. You want to get top talent, and starting earlier is the key to doing that. So, some businesses start recruitment in October and November for the following year. Some start in January and February. But by April, you want to have sent out notifications to students, April and May, so that by June you can onboard them. And so that's sort of the very vague timeline, but earlier in the year is better in terms of recruitment and helping to have students sort of know where they're going, where they're going to be, when they can anticipate starting, because students do need that structure. And so if you can build it into your process, January, February, March are your recruitment periods. April is your onboarding. You want them to be ready to go by May.
Okay, fantastic advice. A lot of our world has shifted to a more virtual world in the last year. And, I know last summer, a lot of our internships were virtual. Diane, you helped us place about 15 interns at the Queen's Chamber. So I'm wondering, do you guys have any advice for businesses that are going to be hosting a virtual internship, just any best practices or anything that you've learned over the last year that you'd like to share?
Go ahead, Diane, I see you.
So that's actually a really good question. I think engagement is the most important thing. Students are now more comfortable working from home. They've been through it for a year. Getting them involved, and like if there's a staff meeting, a weekly call that they can be on, sending a quick email at the end of the week just to check in to see how their week went. You don't have to really treat them any differently than employees in a sense, but you do just want to make sure that they're busy, that they're working on something. Obviously if they have a little downtime, there's nothing wrong with that. I was reading an article in a paper today where Citigroup is now saying they can't have any internal Zoom meetings on Fridays because of Zoom fatigue. And, students, they have so much Zoom fatigue right now because their classes are online and their work is online for the most part. But I would say engagement, and then again, going back to that, mentor, making sure that that mentor is checking in, once or twice a week is helpful.
Awesome. All great advice. All right. Another question here. The internship stipends or scholarships that you mentioned, are those available for a summer internship program?
Yes, they are year round. There are spring, summer, and fall internship stipends. So they are available. Students will begin applying for those as of April for the summer and the fall. Because by now we anticipate that many of them have landed or are looking to land an internship. So it's kind of in line with the timeline that they also have for finding and securing their internships.
Awesome. That sounds great. Okay, and then I have another question. is it okay to offer scholarships targeted for minorities or underrepresented communities?
So target is the key word there. You're not allowed to target. You can encourage, you can, and when I say you're not allowed to target, just like you can't discriminate against any, it's just against the law to discriminate against any particular group of folks. And so targeting a particular group of folks is also against the law in that sense. You can encourage, you can have special programming, but you also it has to be an inclusive attempt at recruitment.
Okay. Fantastic advice. And then, all right, one last question, and this is for both of you. I'm just wondering, in your own experience, was there a particular internship that really impacted you when you were growing up or when you started your career? No, that's kind of a curveball. Sorry to just throw that on you.
No, that's
That's a
just,
good one.
wow. That's a
One.
long time ago. What I will say is, so I didn't have a traditional background. So I didn't actually go to college right out of high school. So I didn't have a typical internship. But I will tell you what did have a real direct impact on my learning and my career journey. And that is having several mentors that I can reach out to at any time. So if you are a college graduate, either a recent one or, number of years ago, 30 or 40, you can still reach out to your college and you could offer to mentor students. It's really, really helpful. We tell students just along those lines that don't have internship, we expect them to have at least 1 to 3, but if they don't, a part-time job is good. And so I had several part-time jobs before I finally did go to college. And it's important that students know that any type of experience that they get, if it's working at Papa John's or Starbucks, we help them transfer those skills that they learn onto the resume, because dealing with customers, especially customers in New York, if you're working in a Rockefeller Center where you're having hundreds of people at a time, it's really good experience. You're dealing with a lot of different personalities. Same thing if you're driving an Uber. A lot of our students do that for a living. And so they're, doing cash transactions, they're doing credit card transactions. So any type of experience that they do have is transferable. Hope that helps.
Oh, that was great. Thank you.
I think for me, it's funny. I sort of I've had a very interesting career journey. So I think I have to start with that. I was a non-traditional student recently. So I actually recently completed my PhD. So that doctor in front of my name still feels very strange. I've been a career counselor for about 20 years. I've been a clinical psychologist for all of 1 year. So for me, I think the thing that most impacted me was, and it's interesting, I started my career in a career counseling office as a student. So I knew that I was drawn to people and to working with people in some capacity. And I think that passion, that fervor that I saw from folks who were doing the work, and understanding that it could really change the trajectory of someone's whole life. That idea that the right job, the right opportunity, that one shot, the foot in the door, having mentors, having people take an interest in you, having a coach, all of those amazing things that we do in my world, they really do impact not just an individual, but they can impact generations of individuals. And so, the power of, I think, that understanding is what has always sort of propelled me in my own career. And and I think that, you know, I personally and come from the philosophy that there really are only two things, you know, in our lives. There's work, it's what we do most of the time. And then there's the other part of our lives, which I like to put under the umbrella of love, right? So like the other stuff that we do, whether it's our vacation time with family, friends, you know, the stuff that we love and the people that we love. And so, you know, it's kind of that idea. And I've always believed this from the very, very beginning of my career, is that the they go together. It's very, very hard, especially now that we live in this virtual environment where, you know, we can have meetings at any hour. We can, you know, we're working till all hours of the day and the night, where the lines have become completely blurred, and you know, our lives are not separate in that way anymore. And I think, you know, this is a very long-winded answer to say, I think there has been a series of little happy accidents along my career journey, but I think that's the same for many of us. You know, most of us will have 6 or 7 or 8 careers across our lives. And I think our students are just beginning that journey. And it's nice to know that there are organizations and people who are invested in I think those opportunities. So long-winded, and complicated, but I hope makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense, and that's an incredibly powerful message. So thank you for sharing that with everybody. Just as we wrap up here, are there any other tidbits that you'd like to share with the small businesses here in Queens that are looking to start an internship program?
Absolutely. So definitely reach out to either Queens College, Queensborough, LaGuardia, York. You know, there are a lot of colleges here, and they have students that are, like I said, ready, willing, and able to work. You know, I think it's important to make sure that the work they're doing is experiential, is you know, gives them the opportunity to learn and grow. Absolutely, if you're in an accounting firm and you want a student to do data entry, that's fine. If you want students to do research, as long as they have something that they're doing, you know, to keep them busy and keep them going, I think that's the most important. If you have a group of interns and you're a larger organization, I would suggest virtual events, you know, like once a week or once every other week with other areas within the firm. You know, even a Friday lunch where everyone brings their lunch to the desk and virtually gets together, like a little socializing goes a long way. Anything else, Keesha?
I think one of the things I would like to focus on is not from the we've been talking a lot about what students get out of this. And I think, you know, mentoring also provides folks within the internal, you know, within the organization with growth opportunity as well. Teaching does the same thing, and that's what you do when you're supervising an intern. I think the idea that setting people up on both sides of the fence for success. So communication, I think, is one of the most important things you can do with your team internally, figuring out how to structure this, what it should look like, what the outcomes should be, what the goals are for each of the interns, what the needs are for the organization, really having those deep conversations. I don't think that an internship program is something that you should roll out lightly. You know, I over the many years, I've seen many people try to do it, and it's much more complicated than most actually anticipate initially. I think there are some additional resources on the NACE site for, you know, scripts in terms of communicating with interns, you know, plans for what should be in place before they get there, you know, just sort of the business process. I think the idea of knowing what you want as the end result. Do we want conversion? It's greater than 50% of employers convert their interns to full-time hires. And so Are we looking to create a pipeline of converted interns, or are we going to replace our interns every year? And kind of knowing that upfront, so that, and I think Diane has alluded to this, that we can help you help interns in their expectation, and we can also support your needs. So if we know that you need an intern every year, and that you're looking to Queens College to help you do that, that it's something that we are not, that we're prepared for. We can reach out, we can let folks know this is coming down the pike. This is something that's going to be available in 2, 3, 4 months. And so everyone's kind of working to your, to your success as an internship program.
Fantastic. Well, Diane, Dr. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to everybody that joined us here on the webinar. Again, this is all part of the Queens Chamber Internship Connection. If you are a small business that either needs help setting up an internship program, please give us a shout. Or if you have an internship that you'd like to promote, you can always reach out to me or Queen Chong at the Chamber, and we can help promote it through the QCIC Internship Board, or we could also help connect you with the fine folks at Queens College. So again, thank you so much, everybody. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you.